Okay, so today we're going to talk about 1.2. So let's go to 1.2. Let's go to page 30, it looks like. Page 30, 1.2. We're talking about displaying quantitative data. 1.2, displaying quantitative data with graphs.
Hey, Mr. On, I think your camera went off or something.
Oh yeah, okay, hang on a second. You know why it went off? Because I have a low battery. But I can This takes a little bit of ingenuity here.
I think this ruins your calculator rule now. I think you have to loan us calculators if ours are dead.
Okay, we're back in business. So 1.2, we're going to talk about displaying quantitative data with graphs. We'll call this part 1. All right, so this is quantitative data, okay? Earlier in 1.1, we talked about how to display categorical data, right? And how do we do that? Anybody? What do we use to display categorical data? No takers? We did bar graphs and pie charts, right? We did bar graphs and pie charts, and we talked about 3 things not to do while we're doing that. What were the 3 things not to do? Broken axis, right? Equal width on the bar graphs, and no icons, no pictographs, right? Okay, all right, so let's talk about displaying, now we're going to talk about displaying quantitative data. In this displaying quantitative, the early, most elementary way to do that is called a dot plot. If you go on the bottom of page 30, there's a green box that says what a dot plot is. If you go to the top of page 31, it says, here are the data of number of goals scored in 20 games played by the 2016 U.S. women's soccer team. And underneath there, it shows how you do a dot plot. All you're doing is ticking it off as you see that number, correct? So you have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 10, right? Okay, so there's nothing magical here. All you're doing is just every time you see a 1, you just put a little dot there, and the next 1 you see, you put the dot on top of that, okay? So what do you see? What would be the mode of this data? Anybody? Cat, what is the mode on data? Between mean, median, and mode, what's the mode? Can you hear me, Kat?
Yeah, I just didn't know if my
Okay.
audio is working still because it's been a little not working. Is the mode the one that's most commonly presented?
Correct. It is the one that shows up the most, right? The most.
So it'd be 1.
It would be 1, obviously, right? Good job. So the 1 would be the mode, right? Okay. We can talk about other things about this data, and we'll talk about that later, but this is how the data presents itself, right? Okay, and there's an example here about give it some gas. Making and interpreting dot plots. So the EPA is in charge of determining and reporting fuel economy ratings for cars. To estimate fuel economy, the EPA performs tests on several vehicles to make sure that what they claim is actually what they say, okay? And then we have the data points there, okay? Flip the page, go to page 32. A, there is a dot plot there, okay? And so they did the dot plot. B. Toyota reports that the highway gas mileage of this car is 22 miles per gallon. Do these data give EPA sufficient reason to investigate that claim? Why would the EPA want to investigate a claim? Anybody? Lauren, if you're the EPA, why would you sometimes investigate some of the claims?
I don't know, maybe because they need a recall.
Recall is a different thing, but you're kind of on the right direction here. What if the Toyota claimed that the gas mileage was 35 and they did the testing and every single one of them was like 31 and below? Would that be a problem for the EPA? It would be a problem, right? Because you're stating that it's 35 miles per hour per gallon, and you're selling your cars based upon this stuff when actually you're not getting that miles per gallon, right? So it says here, do these data give the EPA sufficient reason to investigate that claim? Look at the data, and the Toyota is saying that it is 22 miles per gallon. So if you look there are like only two or three that are 22 miles per gallon or lower, which means that everything else is higher than 22 miles per gallon. So if anything, Toyota is understating their miles per gallon. So there really is no reason for them to investigate. Does that make sense? Make sense here? Okay, so let's move on to describing the shape. When you describe the shape, there are 3 different ways. So let's go ahead and say we had data that looked like this, one that looks like this, and one that looks like this. Okay, so this thing here, how would you describe this? Would you describe this as being symmetrical? Jayla, do you think this is symmetrical?
Yeah.
Okay, it looks kind of symmetrical, right? So here's the key. On the test, when you're writing something like this, you cannot say this is symmetrical because you don't know if it's exactly symmetrical, right? So the way to get around this is saying that it looks like it's roughly symmetrical, or another word to use would be it appears to be symmetrical, okay? Because we are not absolutely sure that it is symmetrical. Okay? It looks or it appears to be symmetrical. Okay, all right. So that's how we would say this would appear to be symmetrical. This guy here, the data is what? It is skewed to the what? Braden, skewed to the
right.
Skewed to the right. Is that true? Is that right there, Mackenzie?
Yeah, good job, Hubs.
It's skewed to the right or skewed to the left, or what is it?
Skewed to the right.
It's skewed to the right, okay? It's skewed to the right. It is sloping to the right. So this here is skewed to the right, okay? Which means that this guy here is going to be skewed to the left, okay? So people often get this confused, okay? Well, all the data points are on the left-hand side, okay? That doesn't mean that's what we're talking about. It's skewed to the right, okay? On this one, it is skewed to the left. You're going down to the left. You're skiing down to the left is the way you would think about it, okay? So that's how you would describe the shape of this distribution, okay? So let's go to page 33. Describing the shape. So dot plots display the different sets of quantitative data. Graph A shows the scores of 21 statistics students on a 20-point quiz. Graph B shows the results of 100 rolls of a 6-sided die. Describe the shape of each distribution. So A, you would describe the shape of A Kyle as what? Kyle? Earth?
Skewed to the left.
Skewed to the left, right? It says, it looks like this, right? It's skewed to the left. All right, good. B, what about B there? Let's see, who can I pick on? Caden, what does B look like?
Is it roughly symmetric?
It really is kind of evenly distributed, right? There really is no peak here. No, nothing that really stands out as a true peak. So the book says it is roughly symmetric. It has no clear peak, okay? All right. So if you look at the bottom of that page, it shows you another distribution there. And that one you would call what? Is that symmetrical? Allison, does that look symmetrical at the bottom dot plot? Figure 1.6?
Not really.
Why not?
Because on the right side it's higher than clear on the left side.
Yeah, you could say that, but you could also say it's kind of roughly symmetrical, right? Because it does look kind of symmetrical, right? So what's the difference between this one and the one over here? What's the difference between that one and this one over here? Allison, what's the difference?
That one is like it joins in the middle, and this one, the lowest points are in the middle and the high points are on the outside.
Okay, so this is what we call single peaked, all right? This is single peaked. And that one over, the one in the book has two separate peaks, right? The fancy way to say this is we call this unimodal. In other words, there's one mode, the one in the middle here, right? Unimodal. The one that we looked in the book we call is bimodal because there are actually two separate peaks there, okay? It's called bimodal, all right? Flip the page, blah, 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 okay. Let's move on to, wait, hang on a second. .2. Okay. Is there any questions on what we did so far? Okay, if there aren't any questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop right here, and you can start working on your homework. You can stop. You can